Hi, so today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about parts work and brain spotting. This is an updated video. I had another parts work video that was hugely watched, but I've learned some new things, so I wanted to update that version. So I learned a version of parts work a long time ago that I use. And in the meantime, I've taken a training with Dr. Frank Anderson in the internal family systems world. And so I have integrated that into my work. Brain spotting is a wonderful somatic modality, my favorite, absolute favorite modality, and it is integrated into whatever else we are doing as therapists, which is why I love it so much. It's not a separate protocol that you have to follow by itself. You can integrate it into your work. So let me start out with talking a little bit about the parts work. So this is my handout that if you join my website at jenniferdelaney.com, you'll be able to have this material, or you can always email me and I can send you the worksheet that goes along with this. But essentially, the oppressor part is what in the internal family systems world they consider a protector. And there can be a number of protector parts. And all of that, and these parts are protecting the more tender, vulnerable parts of the teen and the child. And again, there can be lots of child parts depending on what was going on developmentally. You might, have had something going on when you were 18 months and then later when you were 9, so these parts get, these protectors get created so we don't have to feel the ongoing pain. So this is, again, the system that I learned, and it's a simpler system, but on the same token, it is reflective of other parts systems. There's a documentary out about Phil Stutz, a therapist who calls the oppressor part the X factor, so there's just various ways of working. So essentially, it's not easy to get to the child and the teen parts because these protector parts have a reason. They were formed a long time ago, and we've gotten used to having them around. They can show up as all sorts of things like narcolepsy and OCD, and even if medication isn't working, there's parts that shut down the biology. So these are separate consciousnesses. That's what Bessel Kolk talks about. These parts have separate consciousnesses within us. So doing some parts work is helpful. The nurturer guide, is a big voice later in our lives when we heal. And to begin to form, Kristen Neff really focuses on self-compassion. And that's wonderful in conjunction with doing some deeper trauma therapy. Because if we're only focusing on nurturer and guide and self-compassion, that's going to fall short, or even positive thinking. It's not in our mind. This is going on in the neural networks of our brain. So that's what we want to be shifting, is the neural network, so that we can sustain love and success and joy and all of these things that the guide and the nurturer would love us to be feeling. The observer part is really related to doing the meditation that expands the prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain. It calms the mind that wants to be running off like a yearling. Kind of have to slowly put a halter on that yearling and help it to calm down. So that's what the observer is. The adult is just the part that wants to be appropriate. It's like, oh my gosh, and so it's so happy when finally the nurturer and the guide are the parts that, all these loving parts, when they kind of are the ones running the show, when they're speaking the most on our board of directors, the adult is so happy. But in the meantime, the adult gets kind of dragged along with the oppressor parts, and so that's the way that goes. Those oppressor parts can really take up 100% of our brain, and they can take away all the synapses that are firing in this wonderful thinking brain and creative brain, and we can just become like, just 10 out of 10. So, and that, that's when we're triggered, is those parts are coming in to go, we're not going to let the child be hurt again. Unfortunately, it's not always helping us if we're at a 10 out of 10 when all that's required is a 2 out of 10. So, this wonderful heart in the middle, the true self essence, reminds me when I hear, when I did the training in the internal family systems world of the self energy. And self energy can be the one who is the core, who is, driving the bus rather than the oppressor parts. So, at any rate, Dr. David Grand, what I love about Brainspotting is he's a humble dude. He's like, if something better comes along, the more power to it. We're here to heal the world. We're not here to be, egotistical about our thing being the best thing. That is why I love Brainspotting, because we're taught to follow the client. So we teach the client the process of Brainspotting. And what I love about it is that it is often silent. And so it's accessing the deep brain, because the minute we start involving language again, we're back in the thinking brain. So I sometimes will start a session up. First of all, psychoeducation is really important for trauma, because the more you learn about complex trauma versus developmental trauma, the more you have self-understanding, and you can begin to have the self-compassion for what you've been through. So at any rate, I love Brainspotting because it's accessing the deep brain. It's silent. It's integrated with whatever else you're doing, and it works. I've been doing this now 12 years. And so what I'll do is I'll start a session with some parts work, and then it sometimes just naturally flows into finding the brain spot, tuning into what's going on in the body, and then the client's brain knows how to heal itself, not us. So it's just amazing to watch, and it's often done in quite a bit of silence. How do we know it works? People's lives change. I mean, I've worked with dissociative identity disorder, OCD. I've worked with depression and anxiety. And so if people are noticing a change in their reality and they're noticing a change in themselves and their lives, that means it works. So that's why I'm a big proponent of Brainspotting, but also feeling that some aspect of parts work is important for the integration. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Take good care. Wishing you serenity, freedom, and joy.